Everybody for being here. First, just want to start off by congratulating our women's cross country team for winning another championship. Those do not get old. And then certainly recognizing the nice start from our men's and women's basketball program. So really good, and a big week this week against Memphis for John and the boys. So a lot going on in Uptown. Welcome. Obviously excited to unveil the 26 schedule, which will see us play a variety of different opponents. A total of 30 will be within the top, individual teams will be within the top 100 RPI from last year, and we'll play, I believe, 7 conferences that finished in the top 10 from last year. So certainly an upgrade in terms of the RPI of our opponents. Again, RPIs contingent on how they do during the season and who they play during the season. So, but just from a visual standpoint, I think there'll be some good things on the horizon, and looking forward to this competitive schedule for sure.
Jay, it doesn't seem like there's as many home games. I'm looking at it, especially midweek games. Was that on purpose, or was that something that's just how the schedule fell?
It happened a little bit on kind of how the schedule fell. LMU is a return. Opening weekend's a return from LMU's visit last year, which coincides with Mardi Gras. So trying to get out of Dodge for that, and then we'll stay and play UCLA on Tuesday. So try to make it worth our trip out that way, and then. Fortunate to get a Power 4 program like TCU to do a home and home with us. They'll return the trip in 2028, so we'll take a year break, and then they'll come back to New Orleans in 2028, which will be a good thing. Very difficult to get those teams to do a home and home. We've got some one-off visits in the next couple of years that they won't return it, but we'll go to them. So, yes, more away games, but I think it also it falls this year. We have more away conference games as well. So anytime you schedule a week or two on the road, you're going to get closer to a 50-50 split.
When you look at the schedule, a lot of regional games as well. Obviously, always important to play in-state games, but I mean, just have Southern Miss, South Alabama, those teams that are close by that are also good baseball programs. How important is it to get all of these schools on the schedule as well? Yeah,
we love playing them. They're well coached, usually in the mix for postseason. And last year we had a little bit of a deal with Southern Miss where I promised them we'd go play at their place twice because we we lost one of the games. So I made that up to them last year, and so we're back on our home and home schedule. South Al, I'd like to get them back on the home and home kind of cycle, but we'll see about that. And I try to be careful with the Southland. It's nice to have all of our in-state mates close and availability to play those midweek games, because that's a advantage, not having to drive 3 hours to UL or 3.5 hours to McNeese or those kind of things. It's nice to have them close, but you start compiling a lot of games against the Southland, you're basically a pseudo conference mate of the Southland. So trying to reduce that as much as I can, but we'll see how that goes. But I like playing the in-state guys. It's always a plus to be able to play them. Of course, we're back on the cycle of LSU home and home, so we'll be at their place this year at the end of the year, and then they'll return that at the beginning of next year. So looking forward to that as well.
You mentioned LSU. You also have Mississippi State on the schedule. Just two big powerhouse baseball SEC programs. How important is it to see maybe that level of talent in the regular season?
Yeah, it's wonderful. And you alluded to the regular season. We played Ole Miss in the fall, and that was a good litmus test for this group. A long way to go there, but to be able to play a program like Mississippi State, and they've been one of the few that have done a home and home with us. We went there and won a Friday night and lost 2 walk-offs. I can't remember what year that was. I think it was the COVID year, the year before COVID or whatever, but then they returned here, and we were down 9 and hung up 10 on them, and beat them at our place 2 out of 3. So I appreciated Coach Lamonis bringing the Bulldogs in for that. But yeah, it's always great to be able to match yourself against the SEC and the ACC and schools that are in that P4 stratosphere. So and we feel like we belong in that conversation. And of course, you got to go out and prove that by winning those games. It's one thing to think it, but it's another thing to go out and do it. So,
does the philosophy for what you and your brethren within the league do in terms of scheduling? Does that come out of conference meetings? Is that individual decisions? Are you listening to consultants or anything like that of how to elevate your RPI accordingly, or your strength of schedule, I should say, to make sure you're in the best position you could be for postseason?
Yeah, I would say there's a conference kind of push. We get in those conference meetings together, the head coaches, and talk about our strengths of schedule and how we need to try to elevate that piece of that. And frankly, last year was a little light in the RPI. I think we'd all agree with that. But year one, I dove right in the deep end, and we went all over the place, and we won 15 games. So you can have the hard schedule and lose, or easy schedule win. Like it's you still got to win what's on the schedule, and winning is always the most important component of RPI. But I think it gives our players something to look at and go like, all right, this is competitive. At least when you look at it on paper, they're young, and I think they do tend to maybe at times look at it from a fan's perspective, where they're judging the name and thinking that that's based on a certain talent level, and that's not always the case. And in baseball, it's funny. I just had a text from Coach Eddie Smith, who coached here before I got here, and he's the head coach at University of Washington, and we're opening with them here in 2029. So that should tell you how far out in advance we're doing the scheduling. So you're doing the scheduling out in advance, thinking that certain programs are going to be in a certain place, and then they're not, and maybe you've got to bob and weave, or maybe it depends on what your moral compass is. Do you just dump people left and right, or sometimes you have to out of necessity? And like for instance, in a future year, we had two teams that were in different conferences, but they're now conference mates within this realignment. So we've got a decision to make if we're going to play 6 games against a particular conference in our 5-week non-conference, or if I'm going to get rid of one of those and pick up a different weekend so that we can balance out that schedule a little more. So it's an imperfect science. I think football's got games scheduled out into 2030 as well. Maybe not as many as we have, but everybody's kind of doing the same thing. But yes, to get back to the original kind of ask was, the conference is clearly aware of what we need to do, and trying to get, we're not getting the conferences below the Power 4 structure, not getting more at-large bids in. So we've got to do everything we can to play the most difficult schedule we can, and hope you've done enough to prepare well and play well and beat those teams and get a chance in at-large, because like I said, those opportunities are shrinking, not growing.
You mentioned you've got 15 road games in the league this year. Have there been discussions within the league to possibly go back to 24 games and miss somebody but yet be balanced at the same time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Last thing, obviously a big weekend for your alumni. You got a lot of former players who are affiliated with the Dodgers. Just your thoughts on them winning the World Series and what that means for your program.
It's tremendous. I mean, it's the fact that Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes, and that they run the organization, and then Jack Crescent responsible for a lot of the pitching, cross-checking, and Andy Canizero now a scout in the area. It's obviously a source of pride, so we're really excited for them. And I think it's easy to look at the Dodgers, say you have all this talent, but I think if you watch them closely, which I did because I'm a fan, so obviously I'm happy they won, but you watch the things that they go through the year, and the injuries and the slumps, and Mookie Betts didn't play offense very well, at least up to his standards, but the thing that he did well was play defense, so you can affect the game with your glove as well as your bat. So yeah, just a real source of pride that those 4 guys are intimately involved in the success of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Really proud of that and happy for them.
Only 2 games against UNO this year. Is that correct? Is the Pelican Cup history, or as I dropped my phone on the floor?
So originally I actually scaled everybody down to 1. Southeastern, UNO, Nichols, and then had second thoughts and picked up an extra game against them. And so what we're going to do with the Pelican Cup now, I think moving forward, the days of us playing 3 against UNO, I think are going to be over. I just can't do it. I think we need to broaden the schedule and so forth. And not because they're not a quality opponent, it's just I need to do something. Like if I want an opportunity and to have our guys go and we play at UAB and we bus, I need to have the opportunity to try to get Auburn or Alabama on the midweek schedule, and the more I have those teams playing extra games, the less opportunity I have to be able to schedule those opponents. So I've got to give up something to get something in that capacity. So in the Pelican Cup deal, what Andrew and I agreed to was every game the Cup is going to go to the winner. So currently they have it, unfortunately, and so when we win game one, we'll take the Cup back for that game and we'll hold on to it until the next game, and then the winner will just continue to keep the Cup from game to game.
Coach, you're a couple weeks into fall, and so if you could just kind of address what you've seen so far from a roster that's half returning, half new, and some of the guys that are stepping up to replace the Lombardis, the Rasmussens, the Montiels, the Gavin Schultz on your team.
Yeah, I've been pleased with the way they're going about their business. Their accountability levels, probably the best it's been in 4 years. I would say the strength of our team at this point in early returns would probably be the position player side. A lot of new pitchers feeling their way through some things. I think on paper, you look at the guys that we got, and you could look at it and say more strikes, which is always a plus. Guy like Sahajic's taken a step forward. He's been really good. Clem's been good. So we've had some returning guys kind of elevate their fall game, so to speak. But I think we all know fall is the fall, and when the lights come on, sometimes that's different. But what I can tell you is trying to mold an identity within the pitching staff is an ongoing process for our pitching staff coaches, Frankie Neiman, Billy Price, who's returns to help our pitching staff, and then Coach Josh Fellows. They are doing everything they can and more to make sure that identity is coming to light as we move through this portion. And you got a lot of guys fighting for opportunities. So sometimes that can get in a place where maybe it's not their best outings and so forth, or maybe representative of what they're going to end up being within the inner squad, right? Because when you inner squad, you play each other. So somebody does something well, somebody does something poor. So you never really know where it lies. But what I will say is when we went to Ole Miss, what I told the group after 12 innings of baseball was they made a really good impression, first impression to the outside world. We threw the ball well. We were in the strike zone. We looked the part. We didn't walk in there and feel like we didn't belong physically, like we walked in there and looked a little bit like them, and they're very physical. Ole Miss is always very physical. So, their ability to go in there and, it wasn't look at their national championship banner and it's there was no awe factor for our guys, which I actually really appreciated. We scored in the first. It was Kaikea with a walk and then double by Chun and a missile to right by Wax, and we had one run on the board and 3 hitters, and against guys with real stuff. So if that's any indication, I really like that piece of it, and there was a lot to build off of that game, and they threw their guys and they played their guys, and so did we. So I think it's got a chance to be the floor has been moved higher again this year. Now, what that means, we'll find out, but we still have a long way to go, I can tell you that.
The discussion with your group, now that the schedule's out, and they see all the road games to start the year, and you challenge them with a road fall ball at Ole Miss. What were the discussions like with this group now that the schedule's out to the world and they see the challenges that will start right away this year?
Yeah, and I gave that to them early, and I think the thing that I appreciate about this group is there wasn't really a lot of talk about who we were playing. I think the focus was more on what we were doing as a group and individually to make ourselves better daily. That hasn't happened a whole lot in the years that I've coached. It's usually like, oh boy, we got to go here and look at this, and we got to go to Hawaii and California, and it wasn't anything like that. So the focus part of that for me was a good indicator of just kind of where their brains are, and just again, we have a long way to go, but this group has a chance. So. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you.